Ever since starting my journey with health many years ago, detoxification or cleansing has been a big source of controversy. Me and my more health-oriented friends would frequently go out and buy these detoxes or cleanses, and it was always met with a heavy level of eye-rolling, scoffing, and skepticism. Basically, people telling us it was a total waste of our money. And to be fair, some of them definitely were. But the overall concept I very much still believe in, especially now that I practice medicine. And just to clarify, when I refer to detoxing or cleansing, I am referring to helping the body more efficiently eliminate and process toxins. I am not referring to acute alcohol and drug withdrawal, which is another use of the term detox. So today is an episode for the skeptics or for people who just want to understand why detoxing or cleansing might be helpful and the fundamentals of a good detox or cleanse. I really hope that today helps you understand why helping the body more efficiently clear these toxins and reduce our overall toxic load could be helpful for a lot of people and who it may be more relevant to versus others. So with that in mind, let me just briefly introduce myself first. My name is Dr. Robin Lewis. I'm a naturopathic physician practicing in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And today, let's go over detoxing or cleansing. So let's start with the basics. The overall concept is that we are exposed to a lot of toxins in our environment, such as BPA found in plastics, mercury found in our filling, pesticides found in our food, pollution found in our air, certain medications, alcohol, and so on. What a lot of people don't realize is we also make internally a lot of toxins, and this is usually associated with big inflammatory conditions like chronic infections, autoimmune diseases, cancers, and things like that. Essentially, when I say toxin, I am referring to something that is damaging inside the body and that should be getting eliminated through our routes of detoxification, which are found in places like our liver, our gallbladder, our digestive tract, our lungs, our skin, our lymphatics, and so on. These are the routes of elimination, and each organ has its own unique role in this process of eliminating toxins from the body. Detoxification as a whole is actually quite a complicated process. It involves hundreds of different enzymes and reactions, which require different nutrients and vitamins to run properly. And ultimately, all of these are geared towards helping you eliminate these toxins that, if they do not get eliminated, can store in places like your joints, your nerves, your fat, and it can lead to disruptions to your hormones. It can create a ton of pain and inflammation inside of the body, reduce your cognitive function, and so on. These toxins need to get eliminated because they're not good for you. And if they store in high amounts, they can definitely contribute to disease. Interestingly enough, it's actually because we have so many organs and systems dedicated to detoxification that many experts believe detox programs or supplements are absolutely unnecessary. And some of them will add a little layer of nuance saying, well, just as long as you have a well-rounded, healthy diet, that's enough. You do not need anything on top of that. And this is where I start to disagree a little bit, because yes, we do have a lot of systems dedicated to exactly this. We're exposed to things, but we have systems within us to get rid of those things so that they don't create problems, but only to a point. And it's when we exceed that point, exceed that threshold, that we start to see signs of toxicity. And what those signs of toxicity look like can vary very much depending on the person, what they're exposed to, and for how long. And the aspect of duration is a really interesting one to me, because this is the part that often goes missed. And the more that I practice medicine, the more I really do believe that a lot of these illnesses and diseases are a product of many different factors, and these things can definitely have a cumulative effect. Whenever I'm assessing whether or not to put that patient on that liver supplement, recommend more sauna time, get them on that specialized diet, or any of these other detox-orientated therapies, I like to think about it two main ways. The first thing is, are they exposed to higher than normal amounts of toxins? So generally speaking, this is two different populations. People who live in an environment where there's a lot of pollution or exposure. So this could be your home is next to a factory, a farm that does a lot of spraying and things like that. Is the home life toxic? Or are you working in an industry where you're exposed to a high level of toxins? So this could be things like a mechanic shop, construction, firefighting, working in one of these manufacturing sites. There are a lot of different occupations and a lot of different places you can live that will put you at a higher than normal exposure. And so it's not surprising, a lot of these demographics will show higher rates of disease and illness. It's because they have an above average amount of exposure. And so when you look at a detox or a cleanse, that's why there's often a component to it that is geared towards reducing that exposure. The way they often will do this is through the diet, because that's something that's a little bit more within our control. And so that usually looks like a really clean, low inflammation, organic kind of diet where you're trying to reduce the amount of toxins coming in through food so that your body can at least have a reduced burden for a period of time. So that's one part of the equation. And for those of you who want to go down that rabbit hole of all the different places we're getting exposed to environmental toxins, I did an entire episode dedicated to just that called Is Your Environment Making You Sick? So there you can learn a little bit more about where these sources of toxins could be coming in from. So I'll just kind of leave it at that. The other thing that I'm looking at when I'm assessing whether or not someone would require a cleanse or would likely benefit from a cleanse is whether or not we think that their capacity to detox is impaired, whether that be due to chronic illness, liver disease, nutritional deficiencies, and so on. So let's start by talking about nutritional deficiencies, because a lot of these enzymes and a lot of these processes require certain nutrients to do their job well. Let's start by looking at the liver, which really is one of our main organs of elimination. If we look at liver detoxification, it is generally broken down into two main phases. The first phase is dedicated to changing that drug or toxin or whatever else you're trying to process so that it can be fed into the second phase, or in the case of some drugs, this first phase will be used to activate the drug. And so in the case of drugs, this can be of benefit, but in the case of toxins, more often than not, it actually makes that compound more toxic. Now, this usually isn't an issue if we have high amounts of our antioxidants, which can kind of immediately neutralize those toxins, or if it gets immediately fed into this second phase, which is really the purpose of the first phase. Is like, how do we prep these things so that they can be fed into the next phase, which will feed into the actual elimination of these things, get them out of the body. And so if these things are immediately fed into the second phase, that's where they are made to be compatible with elimination. For example, making something more water soluble so it can be eliminated through the kidneys, making something more compatible with the bile so it can be pushed out into our digestive tract and out through our stool. That's really the purpose of phase 2. Now, each of these phases require specific nutrients. Yes, there is some overlap, but overall, generally speaking, phase 1 uses a lot more of our B vitamins, branched chain amino acids, and different antioxidants like glutathione and flavonoids. And our second phase uses a lot of amino acids, so things like glycine, taurine, glutamine. And just as a reminder, amino acids are parts of protein. So that's why protein is so important for detoxification, in addition to everything else that I mentioned. And again, this is why you'll see a lot of these detox powders, for example, containing all of these things, a high amount of different B vitamins, antioxidants, amino acids, and things like that. Essentially, they're trying to make sure that you have the nutritional capability to do all of this detoxification, to run these pathways efficiently. So if we have a diet low in antioxidants, low in protein, low in B vitamins, for example, these pathways won't run efficiently. But it's not all about diet. Yes, for the average person with an average amount of exposure that is generally healthy, sure, a clean diet full of all these vitamins and minerals and a nutrient-dense diet can get a lot of us by. But there are definitely scenarios where diet alone isn't enough. So the first example would be if you are that type of person who is exposed to a larger than normal amount of these toxins. Every time your body has to process these things, it uses those nutrients up. So your demand for those nutrients go higher when you have more to process. You have more toxins in your environment. So that's just the first example. The other thing to consider is, do you have other illnesses or ailments that are using up your B vitamins, your proteins, your antioxidants? So B vitamins are a really good example of this. They're used in an enormous amount of different reactions inside the body. They are used to make serotonin, melatonin, repair our nerves, replicate our DNA, rev up our metabolism. In fact, none of these nutrients are exclusively used in detox. So sometimes it's the other issues going on that are drawing from these pools of nutrients, leaving less available for detoxification. And the other thing to think about is a lot of these diseases or illnesses will also create a lot of excess hormones, inflammatory products, and things like that your liver also needs to detoxify. And so these are examples of those internal toxins that we make, that the liver and the kidneys and all these other organs of elimination also have to work on getting out of the body so they don't build up in excess. The other thing to think about is the medications you may be taking for those conditions. Certainly some are worse than others, but if you are on one of those medications that is particularly harsh on, let's say, the liver, for example, or these medications that just come with a lot of other side effects, that is also another burden on this system that you may want to consider when evaluating whether or not this is right for you. Now, the last thing that I want to mention, because this never gets talked about, is the genetic disadvantages that some of us have. So poor methylators are a great example of this. We have certain methylation pathways that are running in our phase 2 detox. In fact, it is one of the 6 main stages of phase 2 inside of the liver. And if these people have these genetic disadvantages, they have problems running that particular pathway. Now, it is not the only type of genetic issue, but if you are curious about it, I did 2 main episodes dedicated to methylation alone, just one type of genetic variation that can affect a lot of things in the body, including detoxification. Another good example of genes that affect our ability to detoxify are the ones involved in glutathione peroxidase, like GST-T1, P1, and M1. These ones help run glutathione peroxidase, which, just as a reminder, glutathione is our master antioxidant, and this enzyme is very important for helping us process things like the fumes that come off of car exhaust, cigarette smoke, fumigants used for pest control, and deficiencies or variations in these enzymes can lead to increased rates of lung disease like COPD, chronic kidney disease, certain cancers like colorectal cancer. So this is, again, just a couple examples of the many different types of genes that are associated with detoxification that you can find on a test. So a lot of these genetic panels will look at some of these genes and tell you, do you have a disadvantage at processing certain toxins? Which is very helpful information. So as you can see, this topic is very nuanced. And that's why I get so frustrated when I hear these so-called experts saying that detox programs are a total waste of money and it's a complete scam, because the process of detoxification is complicated. There's a lot of things that can go wrong for people. And so these are some of the things that I'm thinking about when I consider whether or not a patient should focus on detoxification for a period of time. Do you have a problem with the process of detoxification? Do you have a higher than normal amount of exposure to these toxins? Or do you have both? And the types of detoxes that people will do vary very much. And so these are some of the components I'm also looking for when I'm looking at, is this a good cleanse? Does it focus on some of these nutritional deficiencies that can come up? Does it focus on trying to reduce our exposure in some way that we are capable of controlling? Is it supporting all of these different routes of elimination? I have seen firsthand how big of an impact that can have. I've felt it myself. I've seen it in patients. It's not something I recommend for everyone, but in these certain populations, cleanses can make a big difference. A focused, concentrated effort on helping you eliminate toxins from the body can be the right solution for the right person. So I hope today was informative for you and helped you understand why you may or may not want to consider a detox, what is some things that you want to consider going into that, what are components of that detox you want to look for. If you have any questions, please comment them below, and thank you again for listening.